Talking cybersecurity today and why your suppliers are still your weakest link. Danny Palmer, you put together an article here for ZDNet on this. Talk a little bit about it and some of the things that you've learned here.
Well, this article came about after speaking to the Director of Operations at the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, a man called Paul Chichester, who I sat down and had a chat with after he gave a speech at a conference recently. And the National Cybersecurity Centre was set up 3 years ago with the idea of helping make the UK a safer place when it comes to allowing people to use it without becoming victims of crime, fraud, that sort of thing. And the NCSC has been there providing advice to organisations for the last 36 months and helping organisations respond to incidents. I guess its first big test was when WannaCry ransomware happened and our National Health Service was quite badly affected. But providing advice, Mr. Chichester seems to be pleased, and the NCSC is pleased with what's going on, because they believe that the advice is getting through, and that organisations are starting to pay more attention to the world of cybersecurity. There's more organisations which are doing things like implementing two-factor authentication across their employees' accounts, patching and installing security updates when necessary, and growing security teams. There's a thing at a board level at these organisations where security is becoming taken a lot more seriously than it has been in the past, and that's partially down to the work the National Cybersecurity Centre is doing. However, there are still weaknesses. Obviously, cyber attacks haven't just stopped; they're still going on. And one of the areas where the more advanced attackers are using and exploiting to get into networks of larger targets, the main organization they're going after is through their supply chain. So smaller provide products and services to the larger organizations. I suppose a infamous example of how a supply chain attack was used to infiltrate an organization to hack them was when NotPetya happened. That was delivered via a compromised software update from a firm which legitimately provided software to the target organization. In that case, the attack went much further than intended and spread around the world. So basically, what the NCSC is saying is, if you're a big organization, you should have taken a more hands-on approach to the security of your suppliers. Those things that you've been doing to supply your network or to secure your network, start doing that, because if they've got weak links due to the lack of budget or maybe even lack of security team, that could come and hurt you in the future, because even if you are massively secure from the outside, if this supplier has access to your network and that supplier gets compromised by hackers, the hackers will be inside your network. So there's a long chain of things here which need to be taken care of to be safest as possible online.
Yeah, and Danny, I know you touched on that a little bit, though, about some of the things that companies can do and, to be proactive. And some of these measures cost money, unfortunately. It's some big dollars, in fact, but it's worth it to shore up your defense lines there.
Yeah, in the long run, it is. I mean, it's, all organizations, all boards across all sectors, no matter what the subject, they're often trying to balance out the need for spending money and the need for maybe taking risks with how they spend the money. In terms of cybersecurity, I suppose it's a catch-22 in a way. In some cases, boards aren't really paying attention to cybersecurity until they've been the victim of some sort of breach. On the other hand, you could get organizations going, well, we pay all this money for cybersecurity and nothing's happened. So what are we paying this money for? It might sound bizarre, but there is almost a perception that if you're paying for something, you want to know what it's paying for. But if your cybersecurity strategy is working properly, nothing is going to be happening. So it's a really strange situation that organizations can find themselves in. And for example, WannaCry in the NHS, the National Health Service here in the UK is funded by taxpayer money. So there's always debates about how budget should be spent. And so it's easy to say, okay, we want to spend money on upgrading IT systems for these hospitals. But when it comes to making their budgets, they're probably going to be looking more into the budgeting for, actually paying for more doctors, more nurses to do the work, rather than going, okay, IT systems, that's, we don't need to pay for that. And from my own experience, having gone to hospitals and doctors in the past, you can tell that was the case a few years ago, because a lot of their IT systems were old. They were still running Windows XP, Windows 7. But when it happened, suddenly you had people going, oh, why weren't they investing in IT security? So it's a catch-22. They can't. It seems they can't really win in a way. They seem damned if they do, damned if they don't. But obviously, spending the money on cybersecurity can cost in the short term, but in the long run, it's going to pay for itself, because you're not going to fall victim to a cyber attack. You're not going to have to. Well, hopefully, you're not going to fall victim to a cyber. Hopefully, you're not going to have to spend money fixing the damage of the cyber attack. You're not going to get the reputational damage of victim for a cyber attack and customers going, I'm not sure if I want to use this company anymore. So even if you're a small company, these are the sorts of things you should be thinking about. And even though budgets can be extremely tight, it's going to be in the long run to be thinking about them. And that's what the NCSC was telling me. The big organizations which are using smaller suppliers should really think about using some of their IT budgets to help the smaller companies along, because it helps everyone stay more secure ultimately in the end.
Indeed. All right. Well, Danny, thank you for putting that together for us. And for all things cybersecurity, make sure you stick with ZDNet. Thanks for watching.